Hey friends, Ari Koinuma here. I hope you're well. Today I wanted to share with you my thoughts on what makes Red Hot Chili Peppers' Under the Bridge an impactful song. What I mean when I say impactful is when music hits us somewhere deep inside and becomes more than an entertainment to be something meaningful. I've been interested in the art of creating such music, so when I'm looking at other people's songs, I'm looking at it from that perspective. I don't consider myself to be a huge Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, but this song, from the first time I heard it, really spoke to me. At the time when this came out, this was more of an exception than the norm in their catalog, in that the rest of the songs seemed a lot more hyper and uppity and funky. I didn't quite relate to it very well, but this one, it's just so intricate and sad and sensitive and vulnerable, and yet there's a huge climax, and it's also very tragic. And as you know, I'm a sucker for sad songs, so it just really hit me hard. So I've always been interested in looking at this song a lot deeper to find out what's going on here. And when I looked at it for this video, I noticed that there are three musical senses that I would call that are going on in construction of this song. Now, usually for these videos I focus purely from the songwriting perspective, but for this one I kind of have to expand it a little bit and include some of the arrangements in this song, because Red Hot Chili Peppers, they are a band made up of four very distinct personalities, and how they mesh together and create a chemistry. And when they do that, even when they play fairly, harmonically, fairly common material, they just still get a distinct Red Hot Chili Peppers sound. So I think it's fair game in this time to really talk about the arrangement and how they play this song, as opposed to just looking at chords and harmony and melody and stuff like that. So the first musical sense that I want to tell you about is the sense of adventure in this song. This is a very unusual song in that there's three distinct sections: the intro and the verse-chorus pair, and then the climax. It's not really a bridge, it doesn't really return to the chorus, so I don't know what else to call it. And these three sections have nothing to do with each other harmonically. They have completely different key and completely different chords and completely different groove. It's a wonder that the song just kind of holds together when just you cobble together three distinct parts, but yet I can think of other songs where it works like that, and it strikes us really strongly, like Radiohead's Paranoid Android comes to mind, or of course Stairway to Heaven is another one. I think that when the music takes us on a journey where you don't end up where you started, which would be the common thing to do, it just goes somewhere else and it just never returns. It just really takes us on an adventure, and it makes you wonder, where it's going. And the first time you hear it, it might strike you as a little odd or a little strange or weird. But in my opinion, those are the songs that really stick with you for the long haul, and it really sort of grows on you after a while. So that's something to think about in terms of songwriting and how we put music together. So let me just explain what I mean. So the intro is, it's kind of hard to say what the key is. It goes back and forth between D and F sharp, kind of like this. Then all of a sudden it goes into E major. From there, the chorus section does stay in the key of E, so these two are related, and they do go back and forth pretty well together, at least for a couple times, right? It goes. But then after that, the climax part is in the key of, well, again, it's kind of in the A minor thing, but it starts with A. So as you can tell, there are three distinct sections, very different from each other, and yet that's the song. And I'm a big fan of songs that really takes us on an adventure. It's just really interesting to listen to, and you don't really get tired of it even after you listen to it over and over. So that's really a great musical sense to keep in mind in terms of making music. Alright, the second sense I want to talk about is the sense of activity. And by activity, what I mean is that in order for the music to come across and hold our interest, there has to be enough activity going on musically, obviously, right? I mean, if you just stay with something really simple for a long time, it gets boring after a while. And so in music, when a band is playing music together, you want to building enough activities to keep the audience interested. Now, not all the activities have to be something in your face that you really notice or pay attention. Things like, you know, drum beats and bass line. I mean, those are examples of like layers of activities that you might not pay attention to, at least consciously, but it's going on under the melody, and that's part of the what gives the music richness and makes the song interesting. In this one's case, Anthony's vocal line is very, very simplistic. So the band sort of picks up, and in particular, you know, as a guitar player, I noticed John's playing and how, again, intricate and interesting it is. And the balancing act between more simplistic vocal and more interesting or busier or intricate guitar part really sort of creates the density in the music that is required to keep the audience interest. Now, as an example, let me just sing a bit of this with, you know, much more plain guitar parts, and just, you know, just see how this strikes you, right? I drive on her streets 'cause she's my companion. I walk through her hills 'cause she knows who I am. She sees my good deeds and she kisses me windy. I never worry, now that is a lie. So in contrast to that plainness that I just shared with you, let me play a little bit of the, you know, something that's close to what John might be playing. I mean, it might not be the exact same thing, but it sounds kind of like this. So imagine, I mean, you know, notice it, you know, it's kind of high up on the guitar's neck, so it's really actually, it's in the same range, or it might be even above what Anthony is singing, you know, which is down here. So again, since the vocal melody is so simplistic, you know, I don't know if I want to use the word making it up, but the guitar part and, you know, the rest of the band is sort of making up for the fact that the vocal lines are just so plain and confessional and doesn't have, you know, a ton of stuff going on to hold our interest on its own. So that is the strength of this band playing together, is that, you know, when the vocals are doing something just fairly simple, then there are other instruments that are sort of picking up the slack, so to speak, and then giving you something interesting to listen to, and it might be vice versa. And, you know, a hallmark of great band is in that sense of balance and sense of activity that is going on, in terms of, you know, if you don't want to overwhelm the listener with too much activity, but, you know, too little, and it becomes boring. So how do you strike that right level of activity, right? And a lot of times the lead vocal is doing the heavy lifting, but in this case it's not necessarily just lead vocal, it's just that the guitar is doing that, the bass is doing that, the drums are doing that. Basically, again, the whole band's character is what is lifting this song up and then making us listen to it. So the third musical sense I want to tell you about is perhaps, you know, the most conventional, most commonly used one, and that is the sense of build. And by build, what I mean is that you start the music out simple and sparse and slower, and then you build the momentum, you build the activity, you make it denser and you make it busier and you go higher, and, you know, that's how you sort of build the song, and that's how you keep the listener's interest. With this song, it starts out with, you know, just guitar by itself, and then the vocal comes in, and then the bass comes in, and the drums comes in, and it gets busier and busier. Now, you know, for example, the vocal melody too, if you look at it, you know, here, I'm going to play again a bit of a snippet, right? Compare that to something in the chorus, which goes something like this. Something like that, right? The opening bits of that melody. I don't ever wanna feel, right? That little bit of burst, you know, is enough to make it busier and more intense than the totally laid back verses, right? And that contrast, that more activity or the you know, the build is what keeps the song, again, moving. And then finally, in the last climax part too, it's the same kind of thing. There's a bit of burst of the activity at the beginning of each phrase, kind of like So again, you go from slower to faster, and you go from lower to higher, and you go from sparser to denser. I mean, it's just all the standard technique of building music, and the band does that really well. And that climax, man, isn't it really awesome? It's just really powerful, and it hits you in the gut, and it's really an awesome song. Okay, that's all I have for you today. Thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, or subscribe. And if you want to take it even a step further, I love to have you listen to my original music or become my patron. Alright, thanks again. I'll see you next time.